All right, we're starting a little bit early here today. Not waiting for the whole 5 minute timer to go down. Who wants to wait 5 minutes? Hello, everybody. I'm Thomas, and welcome back to another stream on Software with Thomas. Today, it's a bit of a surprise stream, a bit of an unscheduled stream because I wanted to finish up the tutorial that we ended on Tuesday, not finishing up because of some bugs. Annoying bugs, couldn't figure out the bugs, and turns out the bug really was a pretty simple thing. Like all bugs, tend to sometimes be, I guess not all the time. Yeah, so happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. And I kind of just wanted to hop right into this, get this finished, and then, I'll be back on Tuesday with my normally scheduled stream on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So, when we last left off, I was having an issue where I couldn't land on the enemies and I couldn't figure out why. If you have a guess of what it could be, feel free to post it now. If you're watching this in the future, post in the comments. But I'm going to quickly just tell you because it was pretty simple. I thought it had something to do with the layers or the masks or the collision boxes. And it turns out it was none of those. It wasn't anything. It was something I messed up in the very beginning. Almost, I think one of the very first steps was creating the ground. Okay. Not too hard of a thing to do, right? But one of the first steps in creating the ground was over here in the transform, moving it down to Y level -1. And that's the step that I skipped some reason. Or I remember moving the arrow, but I guess maybe I didn't move it fully correctly. Because once I did that, it started working. So, and I guess I could show you real fast right now that we got a game here, and I can move around. Of course, I can jump. Great. And look at that. I can bounce on enemies, and it's great. I still run into enemies. I don't die yet, but that's something we haven't... look at that combo. That was a quad combo, man. If only I had a way to track score, that'd be great. But now, as you can see, I can jump on enemies, they disappear. I also do the little bounce that we programmed last time but couldn't really test. So everything is working more or less as intended. So that was the source of the bug. Annoying as it was, I wish I would have figured that out, but it wasn't something that came to mind. Like I said, I thought it had something to do with like the layers or the mask or the collision boxes, and it was none of those. It was just the ground was too far up. So where the mobs were spawning, I guess the ground was just covering up their collision box. I don't fully know why that was causing the issue, but it was. So yeah, what we're going to do is just continue on, finish up the tutorial today. I anticipate this being a short stream, an hour, maybe an hour and a half, probably closer to an hour. Because we went through all of this. We set up the game area, player scene and input actions, moving the player with code, designing the mob scene, spawning the monsters, jumping and squashing the monsters. So that's the last step of that jumping and squashing the monsters is where we could jump, but we couldn't squash the monsters. So now that we got that fixed, we can head on to the next part, which is killing the player. Then we just have to work on the score and replayability, and then finally character animation. So we only have 3 more sections to cover today. Hoping, like I said, they shouldn't take too long. I also, earlier today, went through them on a separate project just to make sure that I could do them all and not run into any issues. And I didn't really run into any issues. With the character animation, I ran into a slight issue towards the end. I think I know how to avoid it. We'll get to it when we get to it. But let's go, let's start with the next step for, killing the player. So we can kill enemies by jumping on them, but the player still can't die. So let's fix this. We want to detect being hit by an enemy differently from squashing them. So we want the player to die when they're moving on the floor, not in the air. We could use vector math to distinguish the 2 kinds of collision. Instead, though, we will use an area 3D node, which works well for hitboxes. So let's get into that. Also, I should just quick note, very minor thing. I should have maybe mentioned this at the top. And it's not something I really even need to note, but sorry if my camera looks a little bit worse. The main camera I use was for some reason not wanting to work today, even though I've used that camera for like ever. I've used it for like a couple of years now. It's like a webcam, so I don't know why it stopped working today. So I have like a backup, just like USB webcam. that I'm having to use, which doesn't look bad. And I think the lighting even looks a little bit better. So maybe I'll use this in the future, because obviously like my camera quality doesn't really matter for this, but I still like having a webcam on. So yeah, if you notice a little bit difference in camera quality, that's what's going on. But all right, so we need to add a hitbox with an Area 3D node. So we're gonna head to the player scene, add a new child node of Area 3D to the player, name it Mob Detector, and then we're gonna be adding a collision 3D shape node as a child of it. So our player will look something like this. So let's, I'm gonna tab back into Godot, and we'll get rocking and rolling here. So player scene, we got our player here. And first we want to click on the player and add a new child component, which you could do a bunch of different ways. You can click on the plus here, do it that way. So we're just adding an Area 3D, done. We're naming this Mob Detector. Easy enough. I messed up a capitalization, and like I kind of figured out last time, that absolutely does matter. So you make sure I have everything typed correctly, capitalization correct, and it looks like we're good to go. And then we need to add a collision shape. I'm gonna do Command A this time. Like I said, there's multiple ways you can add a child component to like a different thing. And so this, we need to add a collision shape 3D. So we add that, and I guess we don't really need to rename that. So next, let's hop back to this. In the inspector, we're going to assign a cylinder shape to it. I don't know why I struggled with that sentence. Here's a trick you can use to make the collisions only happen when the player is on the ground or close to it. So what you can do is reduce the cylinder's height and move it to the top of the character. This way, when the player jumps, the shape will be too high for the enemies to collide with it. So, yeah. Hello there, Emerald Finder. I'm doing pretty good. You know, it's a Friday. Got done with work a bit early today, and you know, I fixed my bug from last time, so we're actually going to be able to finish this tutorial, which I'm pretty excited about. Hope you're doing good. Appreciate you stopping by. Yeah, we're working on killing the player when they run into the mobs right now, and then adding a bit of a UI to this and some character animations, and yeah, then we'll wrap up. So it'll be a short stream today, but yeah, hope you're doing good. Appreciate you stopping by. And so we need to make this cylinder look something like this. So you want the cylinder also be wider than the sphere. That way the player gets hit before colliding and being pushed on top of the monster box's collider. The wider the cylinder, the more easily the player will get killed. So we need to get it to look something like that. So let's go ahead and do that. Ooh, the fun stuff. Yes, the fun stuff. Hopefully we won't have any major bugs today, but I figured out my issue from last time, which was just the ground was too high up. I thought it was all these other complicated things like collision boxes or layers or masks, and it was just like the ground was too high up and messing with the like interfering with the collisions, I guess. So we're adding a cylinder box here. We're moving it up towards the top, shrinking the size to be kind of thin. Move it down a little bit so it's not just like floating in the air. It's got a better angle on that. We also want to grab this dot here, make it wider than the player, but not like too wide. I can't get a good angle on it. Okay, so that's a little bit too wide, I think, but we'll do something like that. And we can move it around a little bit more. Something like that looks decent. And that's like above the player, so that should be good. I think that's high enough. We'll see. And that's a nice thing is we can always like adjust this as we go. If the collision doesn't work as great, we can widen it, tighten it, make it taller, shorter, whatever. But yeah, so let me go ahead and do one other thing. Let me minimize this. Okay, there we go. Next, we will select the mob detector node again, and then the inspector turn off its monitorable property. This makes it so other physics nodes cannot detect the area. The complementary monitoring property allows it to detect collisions. So then we do that, and then we're also going to go into the collision layers and remove the collision layer, and then set the mask to the enemy's layer. So let's go ahead and do all of that real fast here. Mob detector. So there's monitoring and monitorable. We want to turn off monitoring. Turn that off. We go into... what was it? It Where is it over here? A collision and layer. I was like, I feel like it's in the right spot. Collision, turn layer off, and then the mask should be on number 2, which is the enemies. So that's great, and we're moving right along on to the next part. So when areas detect a collision, they emit a signal. We're going to connect to one of the player nodes. So we're going to select the mob detector, go into the inspector node tab, double click the body entered signal, connect it to the player. So the mob detector will emit body entered when a character body 3D or rigid body 3D node enters it. As it only masks the enemy's physics layer, it will only detect the mobs, which is nice. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. So we go to the player node. No, we're going to the mob detector, my bad. Go into the node tab, body entered. And we're gonna, I think, just keep it named, the on mob body entered, mob detector body entered. That's quite a long little function, but there we go. So then hopping back here, code-wise, we're going to have this do 2 things. We're gonna have it emit a signal we'll use later on to end the game and destroy the player, and then we can wrap the operation in a die function that helps us put a descriptive label on the code. So first we're gonna add this signal hit to the top. So we'll have this to use later. We'll add a die function that emits that signal and then just destroys the player. So we'll put that right here towards the bottom. And then finally in our mob detector on body enter function that we just created and linked up, we'll just run the die function. You might notice some like errors down here. I don't think that really matters. I think it was just because I was copying the project around and whatnot. So I also think it's because it's running right now. My bad. How do I clear output? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't think that really matters. So yeah, let's see. Okay, so we could try it again, and everything should be running correctly, but there is one thing to note. The character should die when an enemy runs into the collision. But without a player, we have this line here that gets the player position by getting the player node and then grabbing the position. This will give an error. So let's see if it's working and then see if that error happens when this all goes down. So we move around, we can still jump and whatnot. Good. If we run into somebody, it's not happening. Okay, well that's bad. I might have put the collider too high up. Oh no, not more bugs. Please, no more bugs. I had this working. Let me make sure I saved this. This is in the player function. Okay, let's do some quick debugging. I'm not wanting to deal with more of this today. It was the monitoring. Oh no, it is the monitorable. I think I turned off the wrong function over here. That might be it. I don't know for sure if that'll fix it. Let's do a quick test and see. So we can still jump and hit stuff, and then we run into them. Then we die. Okay, good. That was just a checkbox. That was my bad. And then, yeah, as you see, once you die, the game crashes because down here it can't get position, which is what that little note was telling us about, that was going to be an error popping up. So we'll figure that out here in a second because, note that the enemy colliding with the player and dying depends on the size and position of the player's mob. The player and the mob's collision shapes, so you may need to move them or resize them to achieve a tight game feel. So yeah, we can adjust the collisions along the way, though. I mean, since this is just a tutorial, I'm not worried about getting everything like exactly feeling too correct because it's just a little sample game, you know? It's not a huge deal if it's feeling a little bit janky. So ending the game. So we can use the player's hit signal to end the game. All we need to do is connect it to the main node and stop the mob timer in reaction. So we're going to open up the main scene, select the player node, and the node dock connect its hit signal to the main node. And then what we do on player hit is just stop the mob timer. Pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and do that. Main scene. And then we click on the player over here in the nodes. We now have our hit signal over here. We connect that up to the main function, and then we paste in here, boom, stopping the mob timer. And now if we try the game now, we should see that if we die, I'm gonna try to get some of these guys first. Ooh, we got a double. So if we die, first off, it doesn't crash, and you can see the mobs go off the screen that were on the screen, and then no more are spawning, which is exactly what we want to see, which is great. we're getting there. You can pat yourself on the back. You prototyped a complete 3D game, even though it's still a little bit rough. So from there, we're going to add score, the option to retry a game, and then we can see how to make your game feel much more alive with minimalistic animations. And they just have all of the code for some of the files there. So we're on to score and replay. So in this part, we'll add a score, music playback, and the ability to restart the game. We have to keep track of the current score in a variable and display it on the screen using a minimal interface. We will use a text label to do that. So in the main scene, what we'll do is add a, sorry, let me update this over here. Okay, we'll add a node control to the main, name it user interface. Will take us to a 2D screen. We can edit the UI, and then under that, we'll add a label called score label. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. That was just under main, right? So main scene, add a child, and it was the control node. Added, name this user interface. Great. It didn't take us to the 2D screen, but we can just go ahead and do that over here on our own. Zoom in a little bit, click on this, add a new node to it, add a label node, and we're going to call it score label. Great. Then the inspector tab for the score label, we'll just have it start off with something like score 0, which is what it suggests to do here. The text is white by default, like our game's background. So we need to change that at runtime. So we can scroll down to theme overrides, expand color, enable font color, and change the text to black so we can actually see it. And it's not just being blended in with our background. So theme overrides, color, color, font color, and now we got black font color. Finally, we can click and drag on the text in the viewport to move it a little bit away from the top left corner. So we'll just go like, I don't know, 2020 or something. Just a little bit right there. Looks good. Cool. And we'll go ahead and save this again. All great. Okay, so creating a UI theme. So as I was going through this today, this part is really cool. So we're going to select the user interface node and then in the inspector, we can create a new theme resource under theme and click theme. And when you click on it to open, it'll open this theme editor in the bottom panel. And what it does is it gives you a preview of how all the built-in UI widgets will look with your themes resource. Which, like I said, I haven't done much game development in the past. The main one I've messed with is Unity. And doing UI was one of my least favorite things. And something like this would have been super nice. So the interface collected, we click theme, we click the new theme, we click on our theme, and it opens this theme panel down here. And as you see, yeah, it gives us a little preview of all the different like default widgets and how it looks with our current theme, which I think is super, super cool. And you'll see how we can change this right now. So by default, theme only has one property, which is the default font. This one expects a font file. So in the file system doc, we can expand the fonts directory where they have a Montserrat medium font that we can just click and drag over and it will change it. So you see here, got default font. We just drag go open the fonts folder, drag the font over to default fonts, and boom, it changed the fonts down here, which is really pretty neat. Yeah, the text is a bit small, so we can also set the default size to 22 pixels, which is pretty simple. Just the box below it, change that, enter, and you can see all the text got bigger in the little preview. I think this preview thing is really dang handy. Cool, that's all we're doing for the theme. So next is to keep track of the score. So let's work on the score next. What we're gonna do is attach a script to the score label and define a score variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me just go down to my other screen. New script to the score label. You could just attach it up here. We're gonna go with a just empty script because we don't really need any of the functions that it normally gives us in attaching this score variable. So it should increase by 1 every time we squash a monster. So we can use the squashed signal to know when that happens. However, because we instantiate the monsters from the code, we cannot connect the mob signal to the score label, at least with the editor. So instead, we have to make the connection from the code every time we spawn a monster. So we're going to go back into the main code, and we're at the bottom of the mob timeout function. We're going to add this pretty cool line of code here. So what this code does is we're looking at the mob and squashed, and when that happens, we're going to connect it to the user interface score label. So the node signal will receive it and call the function on mob squash, which is right here. And that's what this kind of bind is doing. So yeah, whenever the squash is called, grab the user interface and run a function called on mob squash. So let's add that in real fast. Go back to the main function, the bottom of the mob timer, paste that in. And then, well, we're calling this on mob squashed on the score label script that we just created, but it doesn't really exist yet. So now we need to figure that out, which is pretty simple. All we're doing is incrementing the score by 1, and then we're setting text, because we're in the score label, equal to score with a %s and then %score. So what this does is it uses the value of score variable to replace the placeholder, which is what this %s does. So while using this feature, what's cool is Godot automatically converts values to string text, which is convenient when outputting text and labels when using the print function. So we go back to score label, and just at the bottom, add this new function. Now we should be able to play the game and squash a few enemies and see the score increase. Let's see if that really happens. Let me make sure I don't die. And look at that. Scores are maybe a bit small, but you should be able to see it up at the top. And did I die? I wasn't even paying attention. Okay, I was trying to make the window bigger, and these enemies are just too ruthless. Okay, let me see if I can... Boom. Scores 1, 2, 3. Oh, we're killing it. 4, 5, 6. Oh, that was almost a triple. It kind of counted as 7, but and then we died. So cool. Score is rocking and rolling. So we're cruising along. There's a little note here that in complex games, you may want to completely separate your user interface from your game world. In that case, you would not keep track of the score on the label. Instead, you would probably want to store it separate in like a dedicated object. But when prototyping or your project is simple like this, it's fine to keep your code just simple. Programming is always a balancing act. So we got score. Great. So now we need to add an ability for you to replay the game when you die. So you don't have to, completely close out of it and reopen it to restart. So when the player dies, what we'll do is display a message on the screen and wait for input. So we're going to head back to the main scene, select user interface node, add a child node of color rect and name it retry. This node fills a rectangle with a uniform color and will serve as kind of an overlay to darken the screen. And to make it span over the whole viewport, we can use the anchor preset of full rect. So let's go ahead and do all of that. Scroll down in my other tutorial here. So we're going back to the main scene. And then we are selecting the user interface, adding a new thing, call it color rect. Boom. And we're naming it retry. And then to make it span over the whole viewport, we go up here to the anchor presets and we click the bottom right one, which is full rect. And boom, as you see, it did not work, but that's intended. It even says that here, nothing happens. Well, almost nothing happens because there are the 4 green pins on the outside that move to the corners of the selection box. So this is because UI nodes, all of the ones with like the green icons, work with anchors and margins relative to their parent's bounding box. So here, the user interface node has a small size, so the retry one is just limited to that size. So let's change its color so it can darken the area. So we're going to select retry, and the inspector says color to something both dark and transparent. So we're just going to select a black and then change the alpha to make it a bit more opaque, which we could just click here, black, make it a bit opaque, Simple as that. I guess I skipped this step. So what we want to do is then go to user interface and apply a full rect anchor preset to that. So now let's go ahead and do that first. User interface, anchor preset, full rect, and see now it works. So now the retry kind of overlay is now over the entire screen, which is exactly what we want. And now the color's been changed, so it's a bit opaque. So now you can even see the score through it. This is great. So this is good. So now what we're going to do is add a label as a child of retry, give it the text of press enter to retry, and then we're going to move it and anchor it to the center of the screen with apply preset or anchor preset and center, which is pretty simple to do. Just scroll down to make sure I'm updated on my other. Okay, so we're going to add a label. Whoops, I cannot spell label correctly. I guess we don't have to rename it. We can give it that text, anchor, center, simple as that. Love to see it, love to see that. Okay, so now that we have text for the retry, we need to start to actually coding the retry options. So we can now head to code and to show and hide the retry node when the player dies and plays again. So what we're gonna do is open the main script. First, we want to hide the overlay at the start of the game. To do this, we go into the ready function and just call user interface retry.hide. So let's add that in first to the main function. So we're already in main, so we just gotta go to the scripts tab, main, and then this was in the retry function, or the ready function, sorry, which we don't have. So I'll just paste the whole dang thing up here at the top. Cool. Next, when the player gets hit, we want to show the overlay. So very simple, on player hit, we just do the same thing, but instead of .hide, we just do .show. And then finally, when the retry node is visible, we want to listen to the player's input and restart the game if they press enter. To do this, we use a built-in command called unhandled input callback, which is triggered on any input. And basically, if the player pressed the predefined UI accept input action and retry is visible, we reload the current scene. And that's what this is. That's the built-in function. If the UI is action press is UI accept and retry is visible, then what we do is get tree and reload the current scene. The function get tree gives us access to the global scene tree object, which allows us to reload and restart the current scene. So we'll just go ahead and just throw this at the bottom here. Cool, I guess we could probably just give this a whirl and see how it works, because it should be working decently. So let me try to make this bigger while also not dying. Okay, so let me try to get some kills here. Boom, 1, easy. Oh, we got a double. Okay, and then I died. The mobs go away. We see press enter to retry, and then we can click enter, and then we're rocking and rolling again. And then I died after a score of 1. So cool. Let me double check. I feel like that text seems small. Did I not properly update the user interface theme? I did. That just feels small. Let me make it a little bit bigger. But not a huge deal. Cool, we're moving right along. All we have to do left for the score and replay is add music, and then we're on the final step of character animation. So to add music that plays continuously in the background, we're going to use another feature in Godot called auto loads, which this is a pretty sweet thing to have. So to play music, normally all you need to do is just add an audio stream player node to your scene, attach an audio file to it. When you start the scene, it can play automatically. However, when you reload the scene, like we do it to play again, the audio nodes are also reset and the music starts playing back from the beginning. What you could do is use the auto load feature in Godot to have it load a node or a scene automatically at the start of the game outside of the current scene. And then you can use this to create globally accessible objects, which is pretty sweet. So then what we're gonna do is create a new scene and add an other node of audio stream player and name it to music player. So let's do that real fast. We just go up to the top, scene, new scene, other node, audio stream player, add, name it music player. Cool. They have a song that they included, so we'll just put that in the stream property. I'm gonna go ahead and preemptively turn it down a little bit because last time it was a little bit loud. I already got my Animal Crossing music going on in the background. And then also we can click on this and turn on autoplay. So it will kind of just automatically start. Great. And then we just need to save the scene as music player. Okay. So now what we have to do is go up to project at the top here and project settings. And then there's a tab over here called auto loads. And all you have to do is click on the little file icon and click on your scene, which is just the music player scene we just created. It pops up over here for the node name and we click add. And now music player now loads into any scene you open or play. So now if we close out of this and start it up, okay, that's a little loud, but you should be able to hear it pretty easily. And then even if we die and entering, this resets the scene, but it doesn't reset the music. Okay, let's chill. So that's pretty cool, and it's working great. Before we wrap up this lesson, here's a quick look into how it works under the hood. When you run the game, your scene dock changes to give you two tabs. You have remote and local. The remote tab allows you to visualize the node tree of your running game. There, you will see you have the main node and everything the scene contains and the instantiated mobs at the bottom, but at the top are the auto-loaded music player and a root node, which is your game's viewport. And that's it for this lesson. So we're on to the final part, creating some character animations. I'm gonna take a quick sip of water before we hop into this. All right. So, this is the final section of this 3D game. Like I said, this is pretty cool. Animations, once again, is something I'm really unfamiliar with, and I've always viewed as kind of a hard thing, but in Godot, it is pretty dang easy. I did run into a slight issue towards the end of this, which I'll talk about when we get to it. Hopefully I don't run into it again, but we'll see. So in this final lesson, we'll use Godot's built-in animation tools to make our character float and flap. So you'll learn to design animations in the editor and use code to make your game feel alive. So we'll start with an introduction to using the animation editor, which I can also make this maybe a little bit bigger. Let me go also update my other screen. Okay, so the animation editor, the engine comes with tools to author animations in the editor. You can use code to play and control them at runtime. So we can open the player scene, select the player node, and add an animation player node, and then this animation dock panel appears at the bottom. It features like a toolbar and the animation drop-down menu at the top, a track editor in the middle that's currently empty, a filter, a snap, and zoom options at the bottom. And we can create a new animation by clicking animation and new, we're going to name it float. So let's go ahead and do all of that. So we click on the player node. Let's hop into 3D so we can actually see the player. With that selected, add a new node, and it was the animation player. So we click that, create, and here is this animation dock that they were just talking about. And then with this selected, we can click animation, new animation, and like it said, we're calling it float. Cool. So once you've created the animation, a timeline will appear with numbers representing time in seconds. We want the animation to start playback automatically at the start of the game. Also, it should loop. Luckily, there's just two little buttons we have to select. So there's this A+ button over here that is for autoplay, and then we have this looping arrow that we have to click to make it loop. So we just click that and that. There we go. Those two things are done. Simple as that. So next, we can also pin the animation editor by clicking the pin icon at the top right. This prevents it from folding when you click into the viewport and deselect the nodes. So let's go ahead and just pin this here so it kind of hangs out there. Next thing we want to do is set the animation duration to 1.2 seconds at the top right of the dock over here, way at the end. So way over here where it says 1, change it to 1.2. There's a zoom at the bottom, so I'm going to zoom in a fair amount just so we have a better view of the timeline. This gray part is the part for the actual animation. And that's kind of what it mentions here. So you should see the gray ribbon widen a bit. It shows you the start and end of your animations, and a vertical blue line is your time cursor. And yeah, you can zoom in at the bottom right there. So the float animation. With the animation player node, you can animate most properties of many nodes as you need. So you notice there are key icons next to properties in the inspector. You can click any of them to create what's called a keyframe, a time and value pair for the corresponding property. The keyframe gets inserted where your time cursor is in the timeline. Kind of see an example here. So for position and rotation, they have like little keys there. So what we're gonna do is insert our first keys. So we will animate both the position and the rotation of the character node. So what we do is select the character, and in the inspector, expand transform section, and we're gonna click the key icon next to position and rotation. A little box will appear, and for this tutorial, you just click reset tracks, which is the default choice. And then 2 tracks should appear in the window with a diamond icon representing each keyframe. So let's go ahead and do that. So we click on the player, we expand the transform property, which is way down here. And then we click on the key next to position, we click create, and then we click the key next to rotation and click create. And that's simple as that. We have the 2 tracks appearing. So now what we can do is we're gonna click and drag the diamonds to move them. So we're gonna move the position key to 0.3 seconds and the rotation key to 0.1. So let me scroll down a little bit on my other tutorial here. Move the position key to 0.3 seconds and the rotation key to 0.1 seconds. Pretty dang nice and simple to do. So then we're going to move the time cursor to 0.5 seconds, which you can do by either just clicking and dragging on the top part, or you can just click like I did. And then in the inspector, what we're going to do is set the position's y-axis to 0.65 meters and the rotation's x-axis to 8. And then what we'll do is create a new keyframe for both properties. So let's do that real fast. Click on the player again. We click on the Y position down here, and it was what, 0.65. Click enter, and I'll click the keyframe. And then we'll, for the X rotation, 8 degrees. Click enter, keyframe. Cool. Now we'll move the position keyframe to 0.7 seconds by dragging it over. So position 1 is this top one, just click and drag the little diamond, and it's all the way over there. Then we'll move the cursor to the end of the animation, set the Y position to 0.35, and the X rotation to -9 degrees, create a key for both. So the end of the animation is way at the end, obviously. We're going to click back on the player to pull back up the transform, set the Y position to 0.35 and the X rotation to -9. You can see that rotates and moves the player. We'll add a keyframe for both, like that. And yeah, now we can preview the result by clicking the play button and stop it by clicking the stop button. So let's see how our little animation looks. That's an animation. Doesn't look great, but that's an animation if I've ever seen one. Sweet. So you can see the engine interlopes between your keyframes to produce a continuous animation. At the moment though, motion feels kind of very robotic. This is because the default interpolation is linear, causing constant transitions, unlike how living things move in the real world. But what we can do is control the transition between 2 keyframes using easing curves. So what you do is click and drag around the first 2 keys to select them with a little box. And then you can edit on the right-hand side the properties of both keys simultaneously in this inspector, and there's this little easing property that you can click and drag the curve and pull it towards the left and make it essentially ease out, which is just transition fast initially and then slow down as the time cursor reaches the next keyframe. So we're gonna go for about 0.42 easing. So we just do what it says, click and drag. Up here is the easing curve, about 0.42. We'll go, okay, 0.40 is close enough, I guess. And then we can play the animation again to see the difference. So let's start at the front. I would say that looks a little bit better. I don't have the best eye for this, but I think that I think it looks better. The first half should already feel a bit bouncier. So what we're going to do is apply an ease out to the second keyframe by just select both of those, and we're doing 0.44. So grabbing these two, changing the ease to roughly 0.46. And then let's try that again and see how that feels. Okay. It's getting there. It's getting there. Still a little clunky. But what we can do then... Oh wait, so I goofed this up. So we're gonna undo. That's why it felt a bit clunky. So what we're supposed to do is just an ease out to the second keyframe of the rotation track. So we're going to here and doing 0.46. And then do the opposite for the second positioning keyframe, dragging it to the right for 0.27. Or 2.07. So like over here. Something like that. Let's see how that looks. Okay. I don't know, I think that looks decent. Looks better than it did. Does ours look like that? That looks... Doesn't look exactly the same. Did I mess something up? So we edited both the first ones. Apply and ease out to the second keyframe of the rotation. Do the opposite for the second position keyframe. No, I think we're good. Animation doesn't need to be exact. It's more just like how you use it. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and save this real fast. And there's a little note in here. Animations update the properties of the animated nodes for every frame, overriding the initial values. So if we directly animated the player node, it would prevent us from moving it in code. This is where the pivot node comes in handy, because even though we animated the character, we can still move and rotate the pivot and layer changes on top of the animation in a script, which is pretty dang nice. So we can also control the animation in code. So what we can do is we can use code to control the animation's playback speed based on the player's input. So what we're going to do is change the animation speed when the character is moving. We're going to open the player script, and in the physics process, after the line where we check for the direction, we're going to add the following code, this little bit here. And what this is essentially doing is the code makes it so when the player moves, we multiply the playback speed by 4, and when they stop, it resets it to normal. So let's go ahead and do that. So we go over to the script, player script at the bottom of the direction check here. We're just adding that. Let's go ahead and test this. We haven't tested the cool animation yet. I forgot about the sound. Okay, we're not moving anymore. That's a bit of an issue. It's moving faster, but now our player has stopped moving. That's not ideal. Did I make some error along the way? Let me double check what I did. Did I add like select the player node? Yeah, this was supposed to be all on the player node. We haven't really linked it to anything else. I think we've been have I been animating the player and not the, oh man. See, this is a bit of a mess up. I've been animating the whole player and not just the character node. So we're just gonna delete this and real quick redo it, which should only take a second. So let me delete this and hope this doesn't like break everything. Delete node, yes. Can I just like undo it till before I created this, or is that gonna like crash? Okay, so I just undid before I even created it. So what we're gonna do is real quick, just redo that all back. Oops, not that. I'm so used to doing that. Animation player. That's totally on me. We're just gonna redo all of that real fast. See, this is the error I was having earlier. Not the error, but the issue I was having earlier. When I did this tutorial on my own, is this animation menu is like grayed out. I can't access it. It worked before, just like a second ago. I don't know why it's not working now. This was the issue I was having before too, which is not great. I didn't do anything different. I just added the animation player to that, but then I just can't click on this menu to create a new animation. All it says is select an animation player to create and edit an animation, but I can't because the menu's like grayed out. And this was the issue I kind of, because you're supposed to in the tutorial, like we're gonna do this for the player and then the mob. And I was able to do it for the player, but then when it came to do the mob animation, I couldn't create a new animation because the screen was grayed out. So let me do a quick Google search because I don't know why I'm running into this again. So clearly maybe it's something I'm doing, but let me just. Hold on. I'm doing some quick Google searching here. I'm gonna just delete this again and see what happens. Let me delete this. Let me save it and then maybe recreate it. I don't want to have to deal with more bugs. But this is one that I ran into when I was working on this earlier. So animation player, we add it. And the menu's grayed out. I don't know why. I also can't like pin it. I can't zoom in. Can't do anything. That's very weird. Okay, I'm gonna real quick, I'm gonna go to my just chatting screen for a second. I'm gonna try to like restart Godot and see if that works. So give me 1 second. Of course, I was hoping this would be nice and simple, but I did run into this, like I said. So, I mean, I ran into this before, but I was hoping we would get by it fine. We got by it fine the first time, but then I realized I messed up, and then that mess up just made stuff worse, or I don't know. Okay, why is this not? So we go back here. Hold on, I'm trying. We go back to the player. That's very odd. Yeah, it looks like it's working now. I just had to restart Godot. That is maybe like a bug I should report or something, because that seems not great. So we're just gonna real quick fly through this part again. We're adding float, done, autoplay, loop, time 1.2, enter, we're zooming in. Yeah, we did all that. So then we'll animate the position rotation for the character nodes. Yeah, I think that's where I done goofed. So then we need to go transform, and we add the key icons first. So for position, create, rotation, create, and then we move the position to 0.3 and the rotation to 0.1. Move the time cursor to 0.5. Then we're changing the character, not the whole player, just the character. Painfully aware of this now. 0.65, and then maybe that's why it also didn't look too great, but maybe I don't know if that was the reason. We add new keyframes, and then move the position keyframe to 0.7 seconds. Then we go to the end here. We're changing Y position of the character to 0.35. And then the X rotation to -9. And create key properties for both. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, we got an animation again. Great. So then we're going to select, make sure I'm selecting the right ones. Yeah, they want us to select the first two, do a 0.42-ish easing curve, and then select quick and drag it. Okay, this will be yada, yada, yada. Now our animation will look a little bit better. Yes. Then apply an ease out to the second keyframe of the rotation track. Something like that. And then do the opposite for the second position keyframe, dragging it to the right for like 2.07-ish. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, that looks good. Saved. Whew. All right, we're so back. So all the code. Oh no, I have to re-add the code, I think. If I open up the player script again, right? So if I'm hop back to, first we have to add it to the bottom of the physics process. Oh, that's still there. Okay. And then let's actually test that. But you saw in real time, the one note that they were talking about, that you can't like apply animation and move. And there we go. So we kind of hop around when we move. Sorry if that music's like incredibly loud. I'm gonna turn it down on my end, and then we die. Okay. So we know the music works. I'm just gonna like turn it way down. Where do we, oh, it's like, where do we store the music? Yeah, of course, it's in its own scene that we need to open up and then turn that a little bit further down, like -20. Okay. So we have to do one more thing on the player script. So we go back to the player script and back to the Firefox. Here we go. So we mentioned that the pivot could layer transforms on top of the animation. We can make the character arc when jumping using the following line of code at the end of the physics process. So we just do pivot rotation.x equals pi divided by 6 times velocity.y divided by jump impulse. Which will just add a bit of a character, a jump arc for our character. So we do this at the bottom of the physics process. Which this is a long function. I mean, that's like this whole thing. So I guess that's way down here. I hope that's where I'm supposed to put that. Yeah, we got all sorts of errors, but they're not actual errors. Okay, let's hope, okay, cool. The music's a bit quieter too. Look at that. We got a little bit, it arches too. We're jumping and hitting. Oh man, we're killing it. And we dead. But that's cool. Animations are working pretty decently. So let's hope we can get through this next part, because like I said, I kind of ran into a bit of an error here. So another nice trick with animations, as long as you use a similar node structure, you can copy them from different scenes. So for example, mob and player scenes both have a pivot and a character node, so we can reuse the animations between them. So we open the player scene, select the animation node, open the float animation. Next to animation, we can click animation copy. This option was not available for me. We'll see if it is now. It wasn't for me last time I did this. It's because we click on animation player, animation copy, and I don't see that here. Do we right click on this? This is where I was, it's like, it says animation copy. I can just copy like the node path. I can straight up copy the animation player. I don't know if that's what it wants me to do, but then it says we need to create a new animation player. Click on animation paste. Manage animations, can we like copy it this way? Can I don't, what does this do? Is there a little tooltip? What does this do? See, I don't see a copy option. So that's why I was very confused when I did this last time. Over here, you can like copy tracks, but I don't think that's what they want us to do. It just says click animation and I can duplicate it. I'll do a quick Google search, which maybe I should have done last time. Okay, so let's just duplicate the animation. Is there a duplicate option? Let's just try some stuff here. So we go to mob, add animation player, create animation, manage animations. There's no like paste or anything. So we'll just do float. We'll call it like mob instead. What I'm gonna do is go back to the player, animation, edit, copy tracks, select all, copy, go to the mob, animation, edit, paste tracks. Did that work? Okay, but we need to autoplay and loop it. Yeah, I guess that's one way to do it. The way it says doesn't actually exist, but you know what? That works. The other thing we could do is change the playback speed based on the creature's random speed. So we can open the mob script, and at the end of the initialize function, add the following line, which says the animation.speed scale equal to random speed divided by min speed. And we go down here, and this was where? At the end of the initialize function, of course. Which is right here, and we add that, save, and with that, let's see how we're looking, but that should be kind of it. Let's just have it die so we can maybe make this screen a bit bigger first. Click enter. You can see the mobs are moving, and I'm animating, and they're animating, and I die, and I can jump and hit them, and okay, well that was a bad jump. It's kind of a hard game, to be honest. Boom. Oh, okay. That was a bad combo. Boom. Okay, wait. Shoot. This is tough. Oh, we got a double. We got a double, and I died. Let's see if we can get the highest score possible. I don't know what that would be. Yeah, this is it. That's it. That's it. With that, you finished coding your complete 3D game. We've worked through multiple bugs along the way, and so that's a big old congratulations. The next part will recap what you learned, which we're not really, I mean, I guess we can. In this series, we went over a wide range of techniques and editor features. Hopefully you've witnessed how intuitive Godot's scene system can be and learned a few tricks you can apply in your projects. But we just scratched the surface. Godot has a lot more in store for you to save time creating games, and you can learn all of that by browsing the documentation. Where should you begin? Below you can find a few pages to start exploring and build upon what you've learned so far. And that's that. We got a working 3D game. It's not the best in the world. The collisions boxes could probably use some adjustments. But I think, you know, for a simple prototype that's just a proof of concept type thing, it gets the job done, you know. Ooh. We're killing it. Score of 3, 4. New high score incoming. 5. And we died. So, there you go. That's the... I completed this 3D game. And... hopefully you enjoyed watching. If you followed along at home, hopefully you were able to complete this too. And hopefully you learned something. Because, like I said, I'm still brand new to Godot. I literally, not an exaggeration, I only started using it last week for, last week for the first time when I completed the 2D tutorial. So I'm still a complete noob. I technically only really completed this tutorial this morning for the first time as I was going through to make sure I could get through it without errors and whatnot. So, yeah, I'll quickly jump over to my just chatting screen as I'm just yapping away here for a few more minutes. Yeah, that was the end of this tutorial. So we've gone through and created a whole 2D game and a whole 3D game in Godot. And yeah, overall, I really like Godot. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of game dev experience. I've only touched Unity in the past, Unity Game Engine. I've created mainly 2D stuff in the past, but I messed with some 3D stuff. And overall, while it is very different, I do think a lot of things are way easier in Godot, which is super nice. But yeah, I felt like I learned a ton. Hope you did too. Hope you enjoyed this. And I definitely am looking forward to doing more stuff in Godot. Definitely, I mean, these are the only tutorials they have, so I'm not planning on, doing more of these in the future because they don't really exist. But I'm hoping to create some cool stuff in the near future with Godot. And like I said, another game engine that I want to use some point soon, which we'll probably do sometime in April coming up here, is Game Maker. Because I don't know if you can make 3D games, but I know you could definitely make 2D games with it. And I've heard it's pretty solid, pretty easy to use. So that's another one I want to learn as well. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, learned a lot, ran into some issues along the way. But hey, that's the nature of programming. And that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah. Like I said, I would definitely be returning to Godot sometime in the future. What I'll probably do, at least for my first few projects, is just either create really simple games, or what I think one of the best ways to learn is just, getting some assets together and just recreating something that already exists. Because then you don't have to worry about trying to come up with new stuff and make your own, trying to just make Flappy Bird or a simple Mario platformer, or, taking a game that already exists, getting your own assets, trying to recreate that game is a good way to, I think, practice game development, and probably what I will be doing for at least my first couple of Godot tutorials before I maybe try dipping my toes into creating some of my own stuff. But I definitely think these two tutorials really gave me a good foundation on how to use it 2D wise and 3D wise, how to work through some bugs. Definitely it's not perfect. As you saw here, we ran into a small issue with just the animation player, which just a restart seemed to fix that. Once again, that might just be something I did that a restart fixed, but it was also something I ran into earlier today when I was going through the tutorial, so I don't quite know what the deal with that is. But yeah, real quick look at something real fast here. So I think I'm gonna just head out and end here. Like I said, I didn't want this to be a super long stream, and an hour is kind of what I expected. I maybe thought an hour and a half if we ran into a lot of issues, which we ran into a few, but we worked past them, which is great. And I will be back on Tuesday playing a game. I will be playing a little game called Gray Hack, which I guess maybe I can, if you've never heard of it, I can give you a quick little preview here. It is a very cool looking game, one that I own. I've never played before, but it is essentially, it's an MMO hacking simulator game. So you're a hacker with full freedom to act as you wish on a vast network of procedurally generated computers. I got it on Steam. It looks really neat. It's got some cool looking art. And yeah, it seems like it does a pretty good job at what emulating hacking would be, and having just it be an MMO game sounds pretty cool. I don't really have any experience in hacking. I've done a little bit of like security stuff in the past, but nothing like this. So I might at least boot it up sometime before Tuesday just to see if there's a tutorial, just so I can get a little familiar with it. But I'd like to go into it pretty blind and just kind of figure it out along the way. But it looks like a fun game. It has really good reviews, very positive. And yeah, I think it's going to be a fun time. So that is my plan for this upcoming stream on Tuesdays. We'll be playing a bit of Gray Hack and seeing what that game is all about. So should be a good time. Hope it's a good time. I think it'll be fun. But yeah, that's all I got for today. So thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching on Twitch, just as a quick reminder, I am also on YouTube with my channel name is Software with Thomas. So you can find me there. Since my Twitch channel is new, I know my VODs will not be staying up for long, but on YouTube they'll just live there, which is pretty cool. And if you're watching on YouTube and you prefer watching on Twitch, I'm also streaming on there as well each stream. And that's all I really have. So thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see ya. Have a good weekend. Have a good Friday. I'll see you all on Tuesday. Shutting the stream down.